For a few seconds, Iran had its miracle. Not a headline, not a theory, not a social media argument. A real, living, screaming World Cup miracle. The kind that makes substitutes sprint from the bench and makes grown players forget their legs are exhausted. Shoja Khalilzadeh put the ball into the net against Egypt. Iran celebrated like history had finally turned toward them. And for one breath, Team Melli were through. Then the flag came. Then VAR confirmed it. Then the celebration disappeared. And that is where this story becomes bigger than one offside line. Because Iran did not just lose a World Cup place. Iran were swallowed by the machine FIFA created. A 48-team tournament. 12 groups. Best third-place calculations. Teams watching other teams. Knockout places decided across cities, screens, tiebreakers, incentives, and late goals that had nothing to do with the players sitting helplessly in their hotel rooms. This is not a simple story of one captain losing his temper. It is not a fake dressing room mutiny. The real revolt is quieter than that, and in some ways more damning. It is Mehdi Taremi, Iran's captain and emotional leader, looking at the tournament around him and making it clear that no elite team should be asked to survive this many obstacles, this many complications, and this much uncertainty, only to be told at the end that this is just football. Because yes, this is football, but it is also design, and design has consequences. Iran's final group match against Egypt should have been the cleanest possible equation. Win, and the country reaches the knockout stage of a World Cup for the first time. Fail to win, and suddenly fate moves out of your boots and into someone else's stadium. For most of the night, Iran looked like a team carrying more than football. They were tense, aggressive, desperate, brave, and at times strangely cautious. Taremi had the chance every captain wants and every captain fears. A penalty that could change a national story. He missed. Later, Iran pushed again. A header crashed against the crossbar. Then came the late chaos, the ball breaking loose, the finish, the eruption, and the immediate emotional crash when the goal was ruled out for offside. Iran drew 1-1. That scoreline did not eliminate them immediately, but it did something almost crueler. It left them waiting, and waiting is the worst kind of World Cup punishment. After the Egypt match, Iran needed help. They needed other results to break their way. They needed Croatia to slip against Ghana. They needed DR Congo not to complete the job against Uzbekistan. They needed Algeria and Austria to produce a winner. Not a masterpiece, not a classic, just a winner. Instead, every door closed. The final door slammed in Kansas City, where Algeria and Austria played the match that now sits at the center of this controversy. The equation was poisonous before the ball was even kicked. A draw would help both Algeria and Austria. A win for either side would risk destroying the loser and letting Iran sneak through. That is not an accusation against the players. That is an accusation against the structure. When a tournament format creates a match where both teams can benefit from the same result, it creates suspicion before anyone has done anything wrong. And for long stretches, the suspicion had oxygen. The game had goals, yes. It had drama, yes. But it also had moments where the tempo dropped, the urgency vanished, and millions of people watching understood exactly why Iran supporters were furious. Austria led. Iran were alive. Algeria equalized. Iran fell back into danger. Austria led again. Iran came alive again. Riyad Mahrez scored late for Algeria, and suddenly Iran were back from the dead. Then, almost instantly, Austria found one final equalizer. 3-3. Both teams through. Iran out. That is the nightmare sentence for FIFA. Not because Austria and Algeria definitely did anything improper. Ralf Rangnick rejected the idea that the match was fixed. And to be fair, the final minutes were wild enough to make a simple conspiracy theory look too neat. But football governance is not only about proving guilt after the fact. It is about avoiding structures that invite doubt in the first place. FIFA's problem is not that people are asking questions. FIFA's problem is that the format made the questions unavoidable. This is where Taremi's frustration matters. When Iran's captain spoke about the team's tournament, the tone was not just sadness over a missed penalty or anger about a disallowed goal. It was fatigue. It was the feeling of a team that believed it had been fighting more than opponents. Travel issues, recovery issues, political noise, visa problems around staff, disrupted preparation, training plans that had to be changed, security pressure, protest pressure. A World Cup that was supposed to be a stage became, for Iran, an obstacle course. Then FIFA's expanded format added the final insult. After all that, Iran's fate was decided while other teams played the calculation game. Think about what this actually means. A captain can run himself empty. A defender can throw his body into every block. A goalkeeper can keep a country alive. A whole squad can spend weeks fighting through pressure that most teams never face. And still, their World Cup can end because two other teams reach a result that suits both of them. That is not a scandal in the legal sense. It is a scandal in the sporting sense. The first institutional response here is not one press conference. It is the structure itself. FIFA sold the 48-team World Cup as expansion, inclusion, opportunity, and global growth. And there is truth in that. More nations get a stage. More fans see their flags. More players experience the tournament of their lives. Nobody serious should pretend that expanding football's biggest event is automatically wrong. But expansion without clean competitive design is where the promise starts to crack. The old World Cup format had flaws, but it had clarity. 4-team groups. Top 2 advance. Final group games played simultaneously. Less room for scoreboard theater across multiple groups. The 2026 format brings in 12 groups and 8 best third-place teams, and that creates a bigger tournament with a more complicated moral geometry. Suddenly, one group's third-place team is measuring itself against another group's third-place team. Suddenly, teams from different cities and different kickoff windows are tied together by goal difference, discipline scores, rankings, and late-game incentives. The tournament becomes bigger, but not necessarily cleaner. The counter-response came from the people living inside the chaos. Iran's players collapsed on the pitch. Their fans watched hope turn into disbelief. Commentators, supporters, and pundits immediately connected the Algeria-Austria situation to one of the darkest reference points in World Cup history, the disgrace of Gijon in 1982, when West Germany and Austria played a result that sent both through and eliminated Algeria. That historical echo matters because football already learned this lesson once. After 1982, final group matches were scheduled at the same time to reduce the chance of teams managing results. It was not a perfect solution, but it was an admission. The game understood that incentives shape behavior. The game understood that even the appearance of collusion damages trust. Now, more than 40 years later, Algeria and Austria are again part of the comparison, only with roles reversed and with Iran as the devastated outsider. The names have changed. The format has changed. The uncomfortable feeling has not. And that is the deeper pattern. This World Cup is not just producing controversy because referees make calls or players miss chances. It is producing controversy because its scale has outrun its simplicity. More teams means more stories, but also more edge cases. More matches means more drama, but also more dead zones. More paths to qualification means more hope, but also more ways for teams to be trapped by calculations they cannot control. Iran became the human face of that problem. You can argue that Iran should have beaten Egypt. Fair. You can argue Taremi should have scored the penalty. Fair. You can argue offside is offside and the late goal had to be ruled out. Also fair. But none of that answers the bigger question. Why was a team's historic knockout dream left dependent on a match where a draw suited both teams? Why did FIFA build a system where the final moments of one group could become a referendum on the integrity of the whole format? That is the crisis. Not one captain shouting, not one coach denying, not one VAR line. The crisis is trust. Because once fans believe the structure encourages calculation, every sideways pass becomes suspicious. Every substitution becomes evidence. Every slow restart becomes part of a theory. And even when the players are innocent, the tournament looks guilty. For FIFA, the stakes are enormous. The 2026 World Cup was supposed to prove that bigger could be better. Bigger crowds, bigger markets, bigger geography, bigger television numbers. But after Iran's exit, the question is sharper. Can bigger still feel fair? Future tournaments may need more than branding language about inclusion. They may need a serious rethink of third-place qualification, kickoff scheduling, bracket mapping, and incentives. Because the World Cup cannot survive on spectacle alone. It survives because people believe the path is honest. So here is the question for you. Did Iran lose because football was cruel, or because the format was careless? Did Austria and Algeria simply play a chaotic thriller, or did FIFA create the exact kind of match that invites suspicion? And when a captain like Taremi looks around after all the travel problems, all the pressure, all the missed chances, and all the late heartbreak, is he complaining about bad luck or pointing at something broken? The image that stays with this story is not Mahrez celebrating. It is not Austria's final header. It is not even the VAR line. It is Taremi on the ground after Egypt, staring upward while the stadium noise fades around him. Knowing Iran had done almost enough. Knowing almost is the cruelest word in tournament football. And somewhere else, on another screen, another match was still deciding his country's fate. That is why this controversy will not disappear quickly. Because Iran's World Cup did not end with one whistle. It ended in pieces. A missed penalty, a raised flag, a crossbar, a 3-3 draw in Kansas City, a captain's frustration, a format under pressure. Football gave us the heartbreak. FIFA gave us the conditions. If you think Iran were robbed by the structure, say it in the comments. If you think this was just football doing what football does, say that too. But do not let the bigger question slide. After this World Cup, does FIFA need to fix the format before the format damages the tournament again? Like the video if you want more breakdowns that go beyond the scoreline. Subscribe for the next controversy, and stay sharp. Because in this World Cup, the real story is often hiding behind the result.